Smith from Anime Herald.
Hi, Samantha. I'm Tara. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You played a wide variety of characters through your career from that run the gamut in tone and style. What would you say is your favorite genre of acting and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm an actor. I like working. So I guess which my favorite genre would be. I tend to like adventure and wildly aesthetic things, but I don't necessarily care if it's comedic or dramatic. But I think that I have a little more fun with comedy. So I would say that probably what I have more fun with is comedy things, just because I get to play more in it. Although in Monster, if you're familiar with Monster, I play Ava in Monster, and she is crazy and drunk, and that's serious. But it's also really funny because it's ridiculous, like it's really out there. But then if you look at something like Persona, you have the series and then you have a slew of video games, and each video game has a different style and a different aesthetic. And you have something like you have the dance versions, and then you have more serious versions. And so you get to take a character and play in a wild world and a wild range with that character. And so there's something really fun about getting to do that. That said, getting to play a character like Temari over the course of, I mean, we've been doing that for 10 years. It's a serious scope and a serious arc, but it's wild as an actor to get to go on a journey with a character for that length of time. Did that answer your question? Okay, good. You're welcome.
I'm CJ, this is Greg.
Hi, CJ. Hi, Greg.
Faithful.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Wanted to talk about the legacy of Toonami. It's been around for a long time. Your voice has been on it quite a few times. What does it mean to you that the blog has been a home for anime and stuff that you've worked on that people have gotten to listen to and like the thousands and thousands of fans?
Yeah, I mean, I think anywhere that you can have a home for people to sort of feel like they can access something or find a community, I think is really good. And so places like Toonami really sort of help people congregate and realize that they're not alone. And I think in the world that we live in, it's very important to feel like you're not alone, and to be able to feel like there are people who like the same things you like and can appreciate things that you enjoy, and also have a place to say, oh, I really liked this. This is also there. Maybe I can discover something. Because I think part of the fun in life is discovering new things. And so when you have an aggregator of content that can give you a wide enough scope of material, not only can you come for the one thing, but you can stay for the rest. And I think that that can be really exciting. So I think it's great. Mm-hmm.
You worked on several levels of the industry now, both as an actor and also as the co-owner of a production company.
Yeah.
Given this perspective, where do you see the industry today, and where do you see it? What avenues do you see publishers trying to for growth in the future?
Yeah. Well, the industry has obviously been under massive change in the last, how long I've been in it, which has been probably about 20 years. Obviously, having technology shift and evolve affects the industry and how the industry is run, because it makes everything more easily accessible for content creators. So you see the rise of YouTube and a YouTube star, and then how that sort of affects things. And with the creation of Twitter and social media and Facebook and Instagram, you have a whole different way of interacting with fans as an individual content creator and finding new content away from like what's the old studio system. I think it can be very exciting because I think it puts the power in the storyteller. And I think it's nice to be able to have Joe Blow in his living room come up with something and have people immediately be able to discover it and find it online. That said, I think we've come to sort of almost an oversaturation of content, because everybody can create content and everybody's trying to create content and make it accessible. People don't always know how to find that content. And I think we will continue to see the industry evolve to try to support that, because I think it's wonderful. If you and your friends want to hang out and make a new anime or a movie or create your own video game from scratch, or just do a blog about your peonies, like whatever that is, I think it's awesome that you have the ability to do that. But then it's also about how you connect the thing that you are creating, your passion, your excitement, your creativity with someone who's interested in it. Because I don't think any creator wants to create in a vacuum. And I think it's a matter of having the symbiotic relationship between creator and fan, and how you get those fans to find the content is very tricky, which is why we gravitate to things like, oh, Disney, I know what Disney is, I know what kind of content Disney is creating, I know that I'm a fan of their content, so whenever the new Disney thing comes out, I'll watch it. It's a matter of trying to make the smaller guys as important as the big fish. And so I think the industry will continue to evolve as it sort of levels itself back out, because content is so much easier to create as the creator. But also it's a matter of how do you get people to actually discover the things that are being created. And so I think we're in a very sort of tumultuous time, but it's also exciting to be a part of that. Mm-hmm.
How excited do you get whenever you have to record more lines for Temari?
Oh,
She's
my
been
goodness.
on Toonami for so long. Naruto is continuing strong, and now we have Boruto even, so you get to do it more. How exciting that you get to be with this character for as long as you have.
It's amazing. I mean, we've been recording the series for 10 years. So, I mean, I think most series, when you book them, you find out you're like, oh, it's 13 episodes or it's 26 episodes. I mean, Naruto's been over 700 episodes. And then we found out as we got towards the end of Naruto, oh, there's Boruto as well. And we're like, it's going to keep going. I think it's thrilling, it's exciting. You love it when you get the phone call, but you're also like, really? This is still going? There's a part of you that's a little, I don't know, surprised and doubtful, I guess, that it could actually be going on, because it feels like it's never ending. But it's also exciting to see what they're able to do with the characters and what they're able to do with the various story arcs. And you know, you can only tell so much of a story when you've got 13 episodes. You can tell more of a story when you've got 26, or, you know, but suddenly when you get to 700, there's also a lot of filler, because they're like, I don't know what to do with these characters. We just got to keep churning them out. And so there's a lot of stuff that you kind of don't need, but you also get to take the characters on a really wild ride that you wouldn't get to with a shorter series. So I think it's great.
Through your career, you've become the voice of numerous fan favorites, including Temari and Aggressive Girl Washington most recently.
Yes.
Of your roles, which you feel has been the closest to yourself, and why?
Which character has been the closest to myself? I wish I can't curse, can I? I wish I was as awesome as all of my female characters that I've gotten to voice. Things like Temari, they're just so powerful and they're so confident, and I certainly don't feel like that's who I am as a human. I would like to be, but I think that they are. I mean, it's like I'm the way Homer, right? Like, I'll think of something clever to say 2 hours after I've talked to somebody, but my characters are like, in the moment, they're like, yeah, we're awesome, and they know what to say, but they also have writers that get to write all that stuff. So, I mean, I wish I were as confident as those characters. Who's the closest to me? That was a really tough question, because there's obviously a part of you in every character you do. So, like, when you look at a Temari, she does have this strength, but she also has like a perseverance, and that's very similar to me. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make it happen, and so that is very similar to who I am as a person. I'm just not quite as strong and awesome as she is. And I guess the same would be true for Wonder Woman. And Washimi is just like, she's down to business, although she's a little more snarky than I am. She's cleverer than I am. So yeah, I don't know which character is the closest to me. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for that one.
Do you have a favorite moment with Temari that you're happy that the Toonami fans got to see unfold, like a full episode, whether it be a fight, a moment that you got to act where you're like, that really resonated with you, with the character, considering how, again, Naruto's been around for so long.
So long.
Every character, whether there be like the main team, like Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, they just, like Temari and her game gets just as much as love.
I think being able to watch the journey for Gaara and see where they took that character and then see how that affected Temari. So it wouldn't just be one episode, but it would sort of be the sequence where Gaara was really sort of coming into his own, because I think as his sister, Temari had to come into her own as she sort of saw the process that he was going through. And I think for me, that was probably the most affecting in the series, just because it was so overwhelming, and it was a little, you know, what's great about the show is it gives every audience member somebody that they can sort of attach to, and we can all pick who our most interesting character is and who we would want to follow the journey. But I thought it was really fascinating to see what happened with Gaara and how that affected Temari and how she became more open-hearted, kind of. Like, she was a little closed off and kind of snarky as a teenager, and then she came into her womanhood and she was like, no, I'm going to take care of things, and I'm going to support you, and I'm going to be a little more open-minded and more mature. I mean, she matured, basically, right? And it was her maturation, and I thought that was a fun process.
As a veteran actor, what are your thoughts on the changing face of anime that steps out of the subculture into the realm of pop culture and mainstream?
Yeah, I think it's super cool and super exciting that anime is no longer just sort of something you do behind closed doors that nobody else knows about. I think it's, as I was saying earlier when we were talking about sort of the changing industry, I think it's emblematic of our society and what we're doing. We're trying to find things that we can connect with other people on, because I think maybe our technology also disconnects us, and I think that one of the reasons that anime fans and anime conventions have become so popular and have grown and exploded over the last 10 years, mostly 15 years, is because there's this need to feel like we're not in this alone. It's a big, scary world we live in, and there's a lot of stuff that's overwhelming and a lot of stuff that is confusing and a lot of stuff that's scary, and I think having anime become more popular, there's a lot of love in anime, and there's a lot of acceptance in anime, and there's a lot of sort of community in anime, and I think that's good for people. I think we all need coping mechanisms that we are not born with inherently, and unless our parents happen to have good coping mechanisms, we don't get to learn them directly. And so I think it gives a whole new generation a way to start to connect and cope, which helps all of us get better, because the better each of us are, the better we all are. And so I think it's great that it's becoming more of a mainstream sort of.
Even the Patriots have an anime club.
Oh, that's true. Even the Patriots have an anime club.
Talk about that.
Yeah, we got to meet some of the Patriots this morning because they have an anime club, and they were very excited to learn that there was an anime Boston convention going on, and they came because they were excited, and then we met them. And we were so excited to realize that, I mean, in a way, you're like, oh, you do football. Why would you care about this? But everyone can like things together. There doesn't have to be a segregation of you're what used to be a jock or a nerd or what. Like, we don't have to fall into these shoebox categories. We can all sort of share and sort of like, it's like painting. You can sort of mix the colors. And why can't you get off the palette a little bit? And I think that's wonderful.
One show that I really enjoyed that got to air on Toonami, while it wasn't the OVAs, it was the more episodic, it was Gundam Unicorn.
Oh, yeah.
You happen to be I've never seen it before, so watching it on Toonami was my first experience to that show.
Mm-hmm.
You played such a pivotal character. I'm curious what it was like when you were kind of figuring out as you were recording how Marita was really just like so important. She was this complex character.
Super.
So many like different avenues of where she could go. So I was curious of like
Yeah.
kind of realized.
So
oh my God.
when we recorded Gundam Unicorn, it was one of the first times they were doing a simultaneous record with Japan and the US. So they were actively still animating it. So usually when you're doing a Japanese anime, whatever that is, it's usually already been dubbed and recorded, and then you're getting it and you're watching the clips and you're hearing them in Japanese, and then you're sort of figuring it out, and the director already knows what's happening because they've already been able to see the entire show and they're telling you what's happening. These were happening simultaneously, so there was a little bit of like, things wouldn't be animated yet, there would just sort of be blocks moving around. They're like, I think there's a fight sequence here, and we're like, okay. So it was a lot of Michael Center Nicholas and Stephanie Shea, who were on the production team, explaining to those of us who were working on it kind of what was going on while they were still talking. Like, she would sometimes stop the session and like get on the horn with Japan and be like, I just want to clarify that we're in the same boat because we want to know what's happening. But they were great, and as the production team and director, they really sort of helmed it and kept us in line. And I think we all sort of were like, great, we trust you. You just tell us what we need to do, and we will show up and make that happen. But it was really exciting to be a part of that, and it was cool to not see it animated, to like know that they were still animating as we created it. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up to Gundam Unicorn earlier. How much of a fan of you were with Gundam if you knew much about it?
How much of what, Mike?
How much of a fan of Gundam
Oh.
were you when you like got into where you're like, oh my god, now Gundam, like that kind of thing?
I will admit, my husband's sitting in the back of the room, and he is a fan of Robotech and Gundam, and like he knew all of that stuff, and I didn't really know much about any of it. I grew up without a television, so I don't have a big, extensive background or history with animation or anime or cartoons or anything like, or video games. But now being in the industry, I'm a little more familiar. So I kind of knew, I was like, oh, Gundam's a big deal, but I didn't really like know what it was. I mean, I think like the mecha suits and all of that stuff, I think that's cool. Like, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But I wasn't like coming from it, like I didn't have a history. I didn't know the material. So yeah, Yuri's more of a knowledgeable man back there than I am. That's okay. I can balance the checkbook. He can take care of all the other stuff.
So they say that they say a great actor takes something from the characters that they play. Do you feel there are any characters that have really embodied that within you, something that's really changed you that you play?
I agree. You do sort of take a little bit of every character that you play because it goes back to the coping thing we were talking about, right? We always are learning from everyone we interact with and everyone we experience, and characters are no different. And when you sort of step into the shoes of a character, you can't help but put on a little of them into who you are. I have played Temari for a very long time, so I do think that there is a little bit of her attitude and her confidence and her straightforwardness that probably has now seeped into me just because I've played her for so long, and I'm like, I wish I were like that. So I think maybe little bits of it sort of brush off on me a little when I work on her.
A show that I know a lot of Toonami fans would love to see on the blog, despite it being more of an older series, Tiger and Bunny.
Oh,
That's
yes.
how a lot of people react whenever we mention the show. I'm curious, I know you voiced a character, but did you write or direct the show?
I didn't write or direct the show. I just came on as an actor. I was Agnes, which is like the television producer in the show, so people think that I'm more official on the show than I really am. But no, I'm playing the character. I'm not actually directing them to do anything. I'm just in charge of them in the show.
How did you feel about the project itself? Because it seems with the big boom of superheroes going on that Tiger and Bunny might have been a little ahead of its time with how different and how interesting in the superhero genre.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is a little ahead of its time, but I also think it's great social commentary on the world that we're living in and the idea that everyone is sponsored by something. You know, there's like, we are kind of like, we're little brands walking around, right? McDonald's and, you know, like all the things that we interact with sort of stick to us, right? So we're kind of carrying these big balloon clouds behind us of everything that we support because you vote with your dollars and that affects the world around you. And I think it was really great social commentary to have these superheroes being sponsored by these, you know, like these corporations and how that affects it, and everything is filmed because, you know, like everything's online now, right? We live our lives online. And so you've got this reality show filming it, so it was multi-layered in a really kind of fun way. So it's your spoonful of sugar with the medicine. So you get to watch it and be like, ha ha ha, oh. You get the like, oh, I get that sort of a little bit after. But I hope the fans love Tiger and Bunny because I think it's a great series and I think it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
I'm curious on your first moment when you realized your voice was on television. At least when it came to, like, if it's Naruto, that's fine, but I just mean at any point where you're like, you heard it and all of a sudden family and friends are like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like let's say Toonami, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been Naruto. I think the first time, like, I really kind of was like, oh my goodness, was not even like a character. It was a commercial. Like, I think I heard myself like in a McDonald's commercial on the radio, and I was like, that's me, because I was in a random place and I didn't anticipate. Like, it's one thing if you turn on the TV to watch, oh, it's on Toonami, I'm gonna tune in and I'm gonna watch this because I know it's coming. And it's a thrill to get, for me, it's a thrill to get to like hear the character come to life because it's not just me, it's the character. But I think the first time that I kind of sort of jumped out of my skin, I was driving in the car and I didn't anticipate hearing myself coming out of the radio, and I was driving somewhere and I just sort of was like, I stopped remembering how to drive the car because I was like, that's me. I'm like, there's no one in the car with me. I'm by myself, and I'm like, this is me. Anyone that cares. So I think that was the first time that I had like a big reaction to it because I think every time prior to that, I had either gone to a screening or I was watching it intentionally to tune in, and I was thrilled. But it was a little more planned, so I didn't freak out. But that time I freaked out.
Toonami fans are big into video games.
Yes.
I'm curious about how much you really enjoyed being a part of the projects that you have been a part of when it comes to video games, and how you just probably get the same amount of acclaim and fandom with them just as you did with anime.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny. Sometimes you go to conventions that are just anime. Sometimes you go to conventions that are more like Comic-Con. And I would say at Comic-Con, there's a lot more fans of the video game work. But it's like every time you go to a new place, you kind of don't know what they're going to be excited about. So like you show up and people are like, what do I know you from? I'm like, I don't know what you play or what you watch, so I don't know, maybe nothing. And so kind of every time you're trying to figure out how you fit into what they're excited about. But yeah, video games are really cool because they've become such an experience. You know, way back in the day, not only did they not have actors a part of it, like you weren't even interacting with it really. You were playing like Joust or, you know, whatever you were playing, and it was just you were doing the controller. And then they evolved and you were actually typing out the text and playing the characters and making them do things. And then they evolved to, oh, now there's a line of dialogue that's very poorly recorded. And then, you know, they keep evolving and they keep getting better. And now they're so cinematic. And you're doing motion capture and performance capture for the characters where you're basically making a movie. You know, you go in and you're wearing the motion capture rig and setup, and you have all these reflective balls all over you, and you're doing the scenes with your fellow actors, and you are making the movie. You're bringing it to life in a three-dimensional way, in a completely different, it's almost like going back to theater or going back to filmmaking, as opposed to just working in voiceover behind a microphone, where you're still an actor, you're still using the acting tools, it's just no one can see you. Now everyone can see everything you do, every nuance, every emotion, every reaction. And there's something really exciting about that, and I think it's really opening up the fans of video games because it's putting them in the front seat. They become the star of the movie. Whereas when you go to the movie theater, you're watching someone else, but you're in the video game, you're playing the video game. And I think that's really exciting, and it's part of what you were saying earlier, the evolution of technology, the evolution of the industry, and then the accessibility of finding the fans for the content and how everybody connects to that. I mean, we're moving into like VR. There, you know, there's a lot of technology that's moving forward where it's putting each individual into the driver's seat for the content, and so I think it's great.
This is going to be kind of funny. Knowing, I've read about the past fan club of anime, considering I'm from the
Oh, yes, yes.
I've been a fan, and I
Sorry, you said the Pats, and I didn't know what you meant, and then I realized what you. It's okay.
Yes, no.
Yes.
Born here, I even work for a TV
Awesome.
station here, so anything they do, we love. How geeked were they that you were the voice of Temari?
They were pretty excited. Well, I mean, there were 5 of them that were there, and you know, the ones that were like, we're Naruto fans, they were like, you're Temari? But I mean, there were several of us from the Naruto world up there, and so some of them were excited about Dragon Ball. You know, like everybody has what they're excited about, but they were excited. I thought that was pretty cool. You know, there was a lot of thank you, and I was like, oh, you're welcome, thank you.